Okay, welcome back, dear listeners, and one more game about the positional pawn sacrifice. So that game I played about 1 year ago. So we'll skip the opening part because it's not our today's topic. Okay, so maybe we can start from here. So as we see, I chose quite a rare variation with b6, bishop b7, and white tries to punish me by playing aggressively by opening the center. So my plan now is to neutralize white's threats and to create some counterplay. So here I played knight takes e5, d takes e5. I close the position, and now I'm trying to cite the initiative on the king side with h6. Now bishop h4, g5, bishop g3, and h5. So black is trying to seize the initiative on the king side, supported by the light squared bishop from b7. Knight can come later to g6 or to e5, to f5. And it seems that white is not in time to play knight e4, knight f6 check. Because if knight e4 now, then simply h4 and check and king f8, and white's bishop is trapped. So white played h4 in the game, and here I went for the pawn sacrifice, knight g6. Because if, for example, if I play something like g4, it means I'll have to switch to the passive defense, because white simply plays like knight e4 with the idea knight f6 check. So if I take, white takes, queen takes d1, and rook takes d1. And white has a bishop here, and space advantage and better development, because my rook on h8 is not playing. So because of that I played knight g6, forcing white to take on g6, because if he doesn't take on g6 I take on h4. So bishop takes g6, f takes g6, and queen takes d8. Okay, if h takes g5 it doesn't change so much, because almost the transposition. For example, if queen d8 here it will be transposition, but if bishop f4 then h3, knight e4 and takes hg2, and black has same idea that in the game. So queen takes d8, rook takes, and h takes g5. So let's stop for a minute and try to evaluate that position. So black sacrificed a pawn. What did we get in exchange of that? Well, first of all, we get a bishop pair, like in previous examples. So you see that in my games I really like to sacrifice pawns for the bishop pair and for the control. So first, black has a bishop pair. Second is a possibility to open up the big diagonal a8, h1, and h-file by advancing the h-pawn, h4, h3. And also we can see that black is better developed because the rook is already on d8. So the main reason I sacrifice the pawn is activity and bishop pair, and possibility to make my light squared bishop stronger on the diagonal. So h4, bishop h2, and h3. So I'm opening h-file for my rook and opening the diagonal a8, h1 for my bishop, getting perfect chances for counterplay. So g takes h3, rook takes h3. So now, as we can see, bishop is perfectly standing on the diagonal a8, h1. In the same time, white's bishop on h2 is very passive because it's restricted by his own pawns g5, e5, f2. Okay, it also looks that black's bishop on g7 is also passive, but it's not like that, because it can be activated via f8 to c5, and then writing on the diagonal a7, g1. So now white should try to exchange some pieces, otherwise white's plan is very easy, to play king f7 and then to bring other rook to h-file, and white won't be able to hold the position. So rook a1 is quite logical from that point of view. White tries to exchange one pair of rooks in order to minimize the activity of black's pieces. So rook takes, knight takes, and rook h5. So I'm trying to win the pawn back, and then to keep my initiative. So, for example, f4 doesn't work that well for white, because after bishop f8, black is easily getting to white's king. So bishop c5 is a threat. For example, knight h3, bishop c5, pinning up the knight, and now rook h3 is coming with the idea to win the knight, and white is not in time to hold on his position, because bishop g3 is not working due to rook h1 check, king f2, and then take, and bishop e3. So f4 is not a possibility, because black simply activates his dark squared bishop to c5. So white should give the pawn back. So rook e3, rook g5 check. Now we have equal material, but black keeps the initiative because of his bishop pair in open positions. As we know, bishop pair is strong in open positions because bishop likes to feel freedom in the diagonals, and in the closed position knights are usually better. So okay, so let's get back to the game. Rook g5 check, bishop g3, rook h5, and f3. So white managed to limit the activity of black's light squared bishop, but now black is improving the position of his other bishop. Bishop f8 is going to c5. So as I just told, that bishop likes freedom, they like big diagonals, so I'm trying to improve the position of my dark squared bishop. So king g2, now rook h7. Well, I had realized that there is nothing to do on h5, so I should move my rook to d7 to fight for d file. So knight f2, knight wants to go to e4 and then to f6. So I should be quite quick with my play to prevent that. So I played bishop c5, rook d3, and rook d7. And by exchanging rooks, I'm limiting all white's active possibilities, and after that only two results are possible. Either black wins, either draw, because white doesn't have any active plan. He should switch to passive defense. In the same time, black can improve his position step by step using his bishop pair and possibility to win space advantage on king side by playing g5, what really happened in the game. So let's see. Knight d3. Of course white wants to make a draw by exchanging knight for that bishop. So black declined that. Bishop e7, king f2, and g5. Okay, after g5 the pawn weakness on f3 is fixed, so white's pieces cannot go really far because they should care about the defense of f3 square. So king e3, and now maneuver king e8, and king goes to f5, from where it will first of all stay more active and create some pressure on the pawn e5. So bishop e1 was played, king f7, bishop c3, king g6, king f10, bishop a6. Of course black is willing to exchange his light squared bishop for the knight, because after that we will remain with dark squared bishops, and black has a superior one because there is a weak pawn on e5, and after the exchange bishop takes d3, c takes d3, and the king will come to f5. Then bishop will be transferred to g7 via f8, and white won't be able to hold his e5 pawn. So knight c1, of course white declines the exchange, but now the knight is passive on c1, so I'm trying to limit even more by playing bishop c4. Now it cannot go to b3 because simply bishop takes b3. So after b3 I retreat to bishop to a6. So now I remove the possibility of white's knight to play knight b3. So if knight goes to d3 or to e2, I simply exchange for my light squared bishop. Then I go king f5, then bishop f8 and bishop g7, and pawn e5 will be lost. So bishop e2 was played. White wants to play c4 and then knight d3. But as we see, he is not in time to do that. So c4, now b5. I open up the position on queen side because, as I already told, bishop likes freedom on the diagonals. So c takes b5 was played, bishop c5 check. First I improve the position of my dark squared bishop, and only then I take on b5. So as we see, white's pieces are completely restricted. My king is more active than opponent's king. So white's position is quite desperate. So because of his desperation, white sacrificed the pawn. Black took, bishop takes b4, knight b3, and then the rest was quite easy, because black has a bishop pair and the pawn he's a pawn up. So g4, winning a pawn. Well, and here it's completely lost because I'm going to win the second pawn as well. And soon white resigned. So what can be the conclusion of this game? So here was the critical moment when I had to take a decision, either to play g4, switching to passive defense, either playing knight g6 by sacrificing a pawn for the initiative. And in the game I chose that the second option. White took, and here I obtained the activity of I obtained the bishop pair. I managed to open up the H file, and only by sacrifice of one pawn. So in this game, the positional pawn sacrifice really worked fine for me. Yeah. So let's go to another example now.